you've ever wanted to make a classic dainty petit four but were too intimidated to try, then today's video is for you. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Hey, you're watching Preppy Kitchen, where I, John Cannell, teach you how to make delicious homemade dishes to share with your family and friends. These petit fours will be ready before you know it, so let's get started. First off, preheat your oven to 350 and line a 12 by 17 inch baking sheet with parchment paper. Our cake is gonna bake in this and you want it to release super easily, so parchment paper is a must. For the cake, I'm measuring out 3 cups or 360 grams of all-purpose flour, 1 1/4 teaspoons of baking powder, and half a teaspoon of salt. Give it a quick whisk and set aside. The cake for these petit fours is the most just delicious cake, but we're gonna add a special ingredient, 8 ounces of cream cheese. This will give our cake a wonderful bit of tang, but also a body, because we have to cut this into tiny little squares, and it can't be a blow away super fluffy cake. To my stand mixer fitted with a whisk attachment, I'm adding 1.5 cups of unsalted butter. That's 339 grams, and it should be room temperature. We're gonna cream the 8 ounces of cream cheese with the butter. It'll get really nice and smooth, so do not skimp on this initial creaming time before we add the sugar. You want it to be really well mixed in with no little nodules of butter or cream cheese hanging around. So right now it looks great for me, but for you, you see a lot of white streaks, I'm assuming. So we're gonna scrape the bowl down. One more mix, then we're gonna add the sugar. Now we're gonna add 2 cups or 400 grams of granulated sugar. 2 1/4 cups, hello. Mix on high for about 2 minutes. This looks like light, fluffy, beautiful clouds right now I wanna show you. Look at that, that is a light, fluffy, beautiful mixture. Best practice, which I'm following today, is to crack 5 eggs into a bowl, no shells at all for you. We're gonna add these eggs along with 2 teaspoons of vanilla in, one at a time, mixing on high, and we will scrape the bowl down because it's gonna be eggy and amazing on the inside and just butter sugar on the outside. 2 teaspoons of vanilla. You have to see this. Yellow on the inside, white on the outside. Just like I said, scrape the bowl down. At this point, your mixture might look a little broken. You'll see nodules of butter in a matrix of eggs. Don't worry about that. We're gonna keep mixing, and as we add the flour, it'll all come right. Mix, mix, mix. A little mixing later, the egg mixture has come together more. I'm gonna start adding the dry ingredients along with a cup of milk, half a cup of milk. I'm adding the flour and half a cup of milk in 3 alternating batches, just like you would for a normal cake. But we're gonna mix on low, actually the lowest setting, and repeat. Last of the flour and the last of the milk. I'm gonna stop this right now, and it's not combined yet. We're gonna finish this off by hand. The main complaint I get from people making cakes at home is that their batter is over mixed and the cake's is kind of tough and gluey and not as fluffy and melt in your mouth. Now we can pour this out onto our prepared pan and bake it up. Get all that batter onto this baking sheet. Spread this cake batter out because it needs to be pretty leveled before it goes into the oven. So get it all the way into all the corners. Your petit fours should be about an inch, like an inch cube. Mine are 1 1/4 inches. Some are up to 1.5 inches, that's a little big. So you wanna make sure that this is gonna be really even and get all those big bubbles out, because big bubbles will mean you have voids in your petit four, and that's not okay. Nice and smooth. I'm gonna give this as a couple taps to work out any bubbles. And now this goes into the oven, 350 for about 26 minutes. That's how much it is on my oven, but check to make sure that it's bouncy to the touch and listen to the cake. Just put your ear to it like this. If you hear a lot of crackling, it needs to go back for an extra minute. It should be fairly quiet. Listen to your cakes. My cake is out of the oven and we're about to cut it, but before that, let's make our fillings. This smells so good. You've got to make this cake recipe. When you make petit fours, the world is your oyster. You could fill them with anything. Today, I'm using a simple vanilla buttercream. A lot of petit fours have royal icing decorations. I'm gonna make mine from buttercream because it tastes better. So I'm making a little bit of extra buttercream today, meaning I want 1 full cup of butter. We're gonna give this a good cream. Once that butter's nice and creamy, we're gonna add about 4 cups of powdered sugar. Start off with 2 cups, add the rest as you go. You do not want a massive sugar cloud in your face. Not today. As this mixes up, I'm gonna add a few tablespoons of cream. You could also use milk if preferred. 1/4 teaspoon of salt, about 2 teaspoons of vanilla. We're gonna add the rest of the cream right now. It's about 2 more tablespoons. Mix on high for about 3 minutes. Scrape that bowl down and mix, mix, mix. My buttercream's done, so let's assemble these Petit Fours. Get a wire rack. Flip the cake over. We're gonna use this in the next step, so don't put your baking sheet away yet. Remove the paper. This smells so good. In a lot of recipes, you'll see this, cut it in half and flip it over, and they'll bake these in multiple sheets so the cake is thinner. But when you do that, you don't get the maximum absorption of the filling into the cake, so I like to just cut it, it's better. Do not trim the cake yet. We're gonna trim this after it is assembled, so right now we can just leave this as is. I'm gonna cut this in half, but exactly. Virgo feelings. Cut your cake in half. I'm using a nice sharp serrated knife. And we're gonna cut this in half one more time just so it's manageable. You could leave it as is or even have one mega cake if you want, but that's really reserved for the people who have the cake cutting knives. I don't have one for some reason. Cut your cake in half carefully. You can just eyeball it. All right, once your cake's cut up, we're gonna make a cake sandwich. I'm using a cookie scoop to get some frosting onto this cake. I don't wanna rip it. Once you have some good coverage, use a little spatula or a knife and just smooth it out. Repeat that process on the other side with your other filling. In this case, it's that raspberry jam, but it could be lemon curd, marzipan, another type of jam, anything you like. Now I'm using an offset spatula just to help me flip this over like that. Press it down a little bit just so it has really good contact. Give it a little bit of a wrap and let it hang out in the freezer for maybe 20 minutes or so while we make our pouring fondant, or you could even do this overnight or a couple days ahead and just cut these and make them later on. My sandwiches are all frozen up, and in the meantime, I marked a piece of paper, this is actually plastic, but at 1.25-inch intervals so I can cut really easily. I don't want to have my measuring tape out like last time. Virgo feelings. We're gonna begin by trimming our pieces up because the edges are super unclean and messy. And you can see how beautifully this cuts when it's frozen. You don't wanna have soft cake or soft filling when you do this part. Now, begin by adding little tiny marks. You can use a knife or whatever you want, just so you know where to cut. Mark it on both sides, and this will be your guide. Right now, I can already hear the comments. You're like, oh, right, that's a lot of work. It is a little bit of finicky work, but here's the deal. You don't have to make 100 Petit Fours. You could make one block of this, freeze the rest for another time, it freezes for months, and then make them later, or just enjoy a delicious cake sandwich. That's all they are. Let me tell you a little secret. These guys look perfect right now, and they really are very nice cubes, but if they get too warm before the fondant goes on, they might start slipping and a sliding. So we're gonna put these back into the freezer while we make our topping. And they're gonna be in a perfect grid too. So just throw these onto a wire rack that's over a baking sheet. This will be the setup for later, so you're just saving yourself a step later on. These guys and the rest of the cut ones are gonna go into the freezer, and then we're gonna make our white chocolate pourable fondant. We're gonna give this chocolate a good chop, try and get fine pieces. And in the meantime, I have some water set to simmer over a small pot, in a small pot. This can go into a small bowl, and we're just gonna melt that over the simmering water with steam heat. I don't recommend using a microwave to melt white chocolate because it will burn and you'll be sad. I'm gonna sift out 3.5 cups of powdered sugar right now. It's about 420 grams. This is gonna be the fondant, kind of like the base. So you don't want any lumps in here because the fondant should have a nice, smooth, glossy finish. Stir the chocolate occasionally just so it melts evenly. Into my sifted sugar, I'm adding 1/3 cup of hot water fresh out of the microwave. We're gonna pour that in and then add the corn syrup. Now I need that 1/4 cup of corn syrup. This will hold it together and give me a nice gloss. Fold this together. You do not want to use a whisk. You do not want to use a machine. fold together gently because if you use anything else, you'll have 1,000 billion little air bubbles and your fondant will look horrible. So be gentle with it. My chocolate's nice and melty. I'm taking it off heat. That can hang out there though. Let's get this all incorporated before we add the chocolate. Okay, just a little bit of mixing later and I have a beautiful pourable fondant without the chocolate. The chocolate's next. Get every drop of chocolate out. One, because you don't want to waste, but two, it'll make cleaning so much easier. Now we're going to stir this in just until you have a nice, smooth, even, combined, amazing chocolate fondant. Okay, just a couple minutes of mixing later, and I have a wonderful ivory fondant, and that's going to be very pourable. This is ready. We're going to get to assembly now. I'm so excited. So cold out of the freezer, so cold. Okay, here's the deal. A lot of recipes tell you to pour the fondant over this cooling rack that's on here. That is a nightmare. It's gonna be super messy. You're gonna waste all the fondant. We're gonna do it the easy way. So get your fork out, daintily place that Petit Fours right on top of the fork, and you're gonna hover this over your bowl. I need a spoon. Where's my spoon? Spoon this over the top, and you're gonna wanna have one big dip and then tilt your cube so you get all the sides. Tap the excess off. If you see any bubbles on top, just pop them. If you want the bottom covered as well, you can either dip it like this or dip it using your fork and you'll get complete 360 coverage, which is great if you're letting these like hang out someplace for quite a bit of time and you want them to stay fresh. If you want a little bit of color for your fondant, that is so easy. Just add a drop or two of gel food coloring, mix it in, and keep pouring. I like to do like half of mine white, half of them pink, and it gives you like some variation of color. Once you've completed all the Petit Fours and they're covered in fondant, you're gonna give them some time to set up so they're easily held. It could be an hour or so because this needs some time just to firm up and dry out. Once the fondant's set up, you can do anything you want for decoration. I'm gonna make buttercream roses because I love roses and I haven't piped them in quite a while. I have a little bit of extra buttercream left over. I colored some pink, I colored some green, and I left some white using a small petal tip. It's a 101. And I'm just gonna pipe a tiny little rose right on the center and then a couple leaves, and that's it. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's really just the suggestion of a tiny rose. Repeat for the remaining ones, and when you get tired, just do a different simple design. If you like this video, check out my French playlist. It's as delicious as it is beautiful. The rest of these are gonna get boxed up and sent as just because presents for some local friends. I'll see you in the next video.